Hello guys and gals, welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time, we do a Metroid creepypasta again called SAX Infection. Now I'm going to read this creepypasta word for word. I like to switch it up a bit, and I think you all should hear this one word for word. So without talking too much, let's begin SAX Infection. This isn't really something I want to talk about, but I need people to know about this. So when I got to school this morning, I was heading in for math class. And when I saw this boy wearing a cap running towards a trash can. He was holding a game box art. He quickly threw the game in the trash and he just stood there and looked at it. I walked over to him and picked it up. And to my surprise, it was the Game Boy Advance game Metroid Fusion. I asked why he was so desperate of getting rid of this game, but then he just ran away. This was a game I had played once in my childhood, but I never finished it back then. This was a great opportunity to play it again, I thought. When I came home, I found my Game Boy Advance that I hadn't used for years, and I had put in the Metroid Fusion game card. The game card looked all normal, but it had a little scratch on the back. I started up and everything seemed normal. The intro was just as I remembered, and so was the title screen. I was surprisingly excited to play this, no matter how old the game was. When I pressed start on the title screen, however, I could see that file B already had a saved data. I thought that this was the file the boy who threw it away had been playing on. I wanted to see how far he had gotten the game, but when I loaded up the file, Samus wasn't teleporting into the save room, and the classic Metroid game load music didn't appear. Instead, it just showed Samus' sprite lying on the ground in the dark red room, facing away from us. There was no music playing. I tried to move Samus, but nothing happened. I tried to press different buttons, but nothing was working. I started to freak out a bit. Since I knew this wasn't how the game over sequence was in Metroid Fusion, I turned off the GBA and restarted it. I loaded up file A instead, and since it was empty, a new game began. I was so excited. The intro began as always. However, when the intro was about halfway, and we would normally see the yellow X-parasites flow out of Samus' suit, it was not blood that came out. The doctors would normally find the cure in the intro, but instead, it was a new screen that would appear normally, and the text read, "There's no hope for her. Let's go home for now and come back another day." The screen turned black for some seconds, and then Samus suddenly appeared outside of her spaceship, like the normal game. But she didn't have the blue suit that you would start with in the normal Metroid Fusion, but the suit was dark red, and a blue pixel inside the helmet indicated a tear I clearly could see. I knew something was going on, but I went through the first door and the game played normally for a while. Then, when I took the elevator down to the sector selection floor, the SAX came out of the wall. I remember this from my childhood, but this time the SAX just flew through the wall instead of blowing it up, and it moved a lot slower. So I had to sit and watch it getting into the room for a long period. Then it stopped and looked at the screen, and then the camera zoomed in on its face. I remember the creepy face, so I was excited to see it again after all these years. But when I saw its face, a very loud grinding/screeching sound came out from the Game Boy Advance, as if the game was breaking. The game also froze at its face, and I quickly turned the Game Boy Advance off. I thought the game just froze normally, and so I started it up again. But now, the opening was different. The music was gone, and Samus wasn't inside of the spaceship, and in the seat, however, was marks of blood, and the computer stated, "Samus, are you there?" The title screen now only read Metroid, and when I pressed start, it said that file A and C was corrupted, and that I wouldn't be able to start any of them. I tried to load up file B, and then the same screen came up as the first time I tried. However, this time, Samus wasn't on the ground. Instead, I could see Samus without the power suit standing outside a window in the room where she had been before. And she was black in her eyes and facing me. In her hand, she was holding a sign which read, "Kill me now." I started to get really afraid, and this was just totally abnormal. Something was wrong. I tried to press any button, but nothing worked. But when I pressed the L button, Samus disappeared from the window, and the SAX chasing music started playing backwards, and the picture of SAX's face popped up on the screen. I jumped and screamed at the same time, especially when the face was now torn apart and blood was streaming from its eyes. I tried to turn off the GBA, but the music kept playing and the picture didn't go away. I threw the Game Boy Advance away, and everything I remember after that was that I woke up in the hospital, and my mom was sitting next to me. She said she had found me fainted in my bedroom with my eyes open, and the GBA was cracked in two. I looked around to see if there were others in the room, and a fear went through me when I saw the boy from school standing outside the window, staring at me, and smiling. Wow, you know, there are good creepypastas, and then there's bad ones, and then there's the SAX Infection. Now, by no means is it an awful creepypasta. I mean, there's far more unforgivable ones that we could rip apart. Haunting Most Mario and Alex Melee, for example. But damn! First off, at least the method of obtaining the game is somewhat unique. We've seen it somewhat before, but I haven't seen it to the extent as some other cliches. You know, here we have some kid just throwing a game away and running off, whereas, you know, at least we didn't have a deranged shopkeep, or old man, or I don't know, hell, an old, you know, spooky ghost, or kazoo, or calculator, or Sonic plushie, or ancient tribal burial ground, or eBay. At least it's unique, somewhat unique. Why the hell the kid would not just simply sell the game or trade it in is behind my level of understanding. Another cliche is with the distorted music, or, you know, the music not even sounding whatsoever in the game. It constantly appears in many creepypastas. See, in creepypastas like Ben Majora's Mask, for example, it makes sense because it's actually scary because you listen to it and you experience it alongside the gameplay, which adds to it. Here, the audio just cuts out. That's not necessarily creepy. Seriously, if you go to any game settings, just turn the ambient music down, or hell, just mute your TV or audio device or speakers or whatever, it would make any game scary in theory. Shit, you could be crapping your pants playing Kirby 64. Another cliche is the inability to move characters. Again, really don't know how this is creepy. I would think the ability to move the character would be more immersive and scary. Not being able to would really kind of kill the immersiveness and really just involve the player just sitting around waiting for something to happen. The dialogue was alright in the game, and I really couldn't complain there from as much dialogue that was there. The Red Samus alternate costume probably would have set off an alarm, but I wouldn't really call that creepy. I mean, hey, it's an alternate costume. Can't really complain there. The blue tear and the helmet, I can't really figure out, since it could be a lot of things. I mean, Game Boy Advance visuals aren't really supposed to be defined, especially a pixel in the game. And then the restarting game becomes another well-known cliche, where the game plays normally, but then it crashes, and as soon as it turns on, holy shit, it's a different game. It's been there a lot, and then the end felt quite rushed. I mean, Zalco Samus staring at the player with what I can imagine a comical Wile E. Coyote sign stating "Kill me now," and then the music started playing backwards, and blood streamed from the eyes like a waterfall. I mean, how many times have we seen this? Then the kid passes out as the Game Boy is thrown, and then wakes up in a hospital. Mom walks in, stating the player was fainted with the eyes open, and the Game Boy is cracked in two pieces. And hell, the boy from the beginning was smiling looking through the window, somewhat similar to the Zalco Samus. It felt as if the premise had some weight, and it could have been more fleshed out, and there could have been some more build-up as opposed to really no build-up. The ending just felt rushed. I mean, it might sound like I'm ripping this creepypasta a new hole, and that's because I kind of am. Now, like I said earlier, there's far worse creepypastas out there that we could read, and the only reason I haven't is to save you, the viewer, from blood-gushing ears and dead brain cells. Because if I did, that's probably what would happen. Really, that's all I think about this creepypasta. It could be a lot better if things were changed and some cliches were better used. See, it's not that the use makes them necessarily bad, it's the context and just the randomness that really affects it and takes away from the experience. In the end, what would you rate this creepypasta and what would you change to make it better? Please tell me in the comments below. This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Mutahar, and I am out.